Well, hello there. Over Csgo's more than 10-year history, so many tournaments have been held that some of them inevitably became failures. Remember, for example, the mess at Epic CS League or the huge delays at the Krakow Major? But there was one tournament that outdid all the others in its terrible organization. That tournament was called Gaming Paradise. Players had their documents taken away. The computers had no GPUs, just office monitors, and no one ever received the prize money. Now that's just too much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is FarmSkins, and today we will tell you about the worst LAN tournament in CSGO history. Meet Mr. B, an ordinary entrepreneur from Slovenia with no connection to esports. The Slovenian owned a small company called Gaming Resorts, which created custom software. At some point, Mr. B had the brilliant idea to create an esport event hosting 4 tournaments for different games: CSGO, Dota, League of Legends, and Hearthstone. He didn't want to host another major LAN in a stadium. On the contrary, according to the plan, the novice organizer wanted to make a casual tournament where teams would compete during the day and drink cocktails on the Adriatic coast in the evening. Now that sounds tempting, doesn't it? Are you already drooling? Hey, where you at? Hey, get back to the video, you gotta watch it. Mr. B announced the tournament on behalf of his company, Gaming Resorts. He signed a contract with a small firm with a very similar name, Gamers.RS. They were supposed to handle organizational issues, such as broadcasting, computer setup, and player assistance. The Slovenian was only required one thing: to provide money on time. Gaming Paradise was scheduled for September 6 to 8, 2015, and despite the fact that a major LAN from ESL in Dubai was set to start on September 10, many top teams still agreed to attend the tournament. The reason for their consent was the casual atmosphere that Mr. B actively advertised. Here are some of the things that he promised to the players: accommodation in luxury suites at a prestigious hotel on the Adriatic coast, 50 varieties of premium beer, constant access to jacuzzi, and live music. As a result, Navi, Virtus Pro, and Titan flew to the Gaming Paradise not as a serious tournament, but as a short break before the major LAN from ESL. And boom, the first alarm bells appeared already then. For example, of the 4 announced games, only 2 remained: CSGO and Dota. The Hearthstone and the League of Legends tournaments was silently cancelled. Players began to gather for Gaming Paradise, and boom, another problem arose. Almost no one received the promised $2,000 per team ticket coverage. Mr. B explained that all his money was on credit card with the $3,000 daily limit. He spoke with organizations and promised to cover all the travel expenses. The teams agreed and flew at their own expense. Transportation to the resort was also the organizer's responsibility, but for some unknown reason, the buses were delayed. Players had to wait several hours until a minibus picked them up, which they barely fit into. Checking into the hotel at 4 in the morning, the team saw not the promised luxury suites, but mini apartments, one for each roster. Many had to sleep on sofas and floors. The hotel staff treated the players like garbage. They were used to their guests being wealthy yacht club visitors, and here a crowd of gamers arrived, for whom no one had paid yet. It also became clear that there would be practically no spectators at the tournament. Later, the organizers admitted that financially they were betting heavily on a ticket revenue. They rented an arena for 5,000 people and expected to sell at least 2,000 tickets at $25 each. And you know how many were actually purchased? 200 pieces. The ticket situation perfectly demonstrates the incompetence of the organizers. The last CSGO major at that time gathered 11,500 spectators, and that was a huge free entry tournament. The tournament was supposed to start on September 6 outdoors, but a storm hit the seaside town of Portoroz. The matches had to be postponed until the next day, and the teams were told that tomorrow they would have to play 2 days' worth of matches. Returning to the hotel in a bad mood from the news, Team Titan discovered that the resort staff were looking at them like they were fraudsters. The hotel employees still hadn't been paid for accommodation and came up with nothing better than taking their passports and calling the police. The players were very scared. In a few days they needed to fly to a major LAN tournament and their documents were being held by Slavic authorities. Fortunately, they later managed to find a compromise. By the way, teams that tried to turn on the jacuzzi in their rooms were sternly refused by the hotel. Staff bluntly told them that until the accommodation was paid, they wouldn't turn on the jacuzzi. The night passed somehow, and on the morning of September 7, the teams came to the half-empty arena to play matches. The players brought their own devices and encountered, let's say, a small problem. There were no computers there. Really? No computers at a LAN tournament? Really? Could Mr. B have forgotten about them? It later turned out that the organizers did order computers from some Belgian cyber cafe. They hired 2 private drivers with minibuses to bring the hardware to Slovenia, one for the PCs, the other for the monitors. However, one of these drivers disappeared and no one could contact him for 24 hours. And the second had already arrived in Belgium and was ready to pick up the order. Then he called Mr. B and said that he didn't have enough space to pick up both the PCs and the monitors, so he had to choose one or the other. Obviously, in this situation, you need to take the PCs, right? But the organizer told the driver to take the monitors. The only thing left was to find PCs. Mr. B rented office computers from the small local company, and when they were brought to the arena and set up for the players, it turned out that the hardware simply did not meet gaming requirements. There were old processors and no GPUs at all. The organizers turned a blind eye on the old processors and started looking for GPUs. He turned to local Bitcoin miners who lent him some of their equipment. As a result, these computers barely ran Csgo at 100 FPS, and when the teams tried to play on them, it turned out that those same monitors from the Belgian cybercafe were regular office monitors with 60 Hz refresh rate. The players were willing to somehow put up with the performance, but playing on old monitors was not part of their plans. They gave the organizers an ultimatum to find normal monitors with proper refresh rate, or the tournament would not take place. Fortunately, they managed to do that and Gaming Paradise started. The delay of the first match was 25 hours and the championship ultimately had to fit into 2 days. Because of this, many games, including the third place decider, were played in the best-of-1 format and the Dota tournament had to be cancelled altogether. By that time, Gaming Paradise had to become the most talked about topic in the CSGO community. It would be one thing if this was a small tier 3 LAN, but no, the best teams in the world are playing there, including Navi, Virtus.pro, Titan and Kingwin. Fans wanted to watch their favorite teams' matches, especially when they play at such sensational tournament. Boom, again, another unpleasant detail surfaced. It turned out that the brilliant Mr. B had a deal with MLG TV streaming service for exclusive broadcast rights of the tournament. And it would be fine, but the audience wasn't properly informed about this, and many people not finding the stream on Twitch thought there were none at all. And those viewers who did know about MLG TV enjoyed constant lag and terrible quality that made it impossible to even read the players' names. By that time, people noticed that in fact 2 legal entities were responsible for organizing the tournament: Mr. B's Gaming Resorts and the contractors, Gamers.RS. No one attached any importance to these due to the similarity in names. Gaming Resorts was responsible for finances, and by that point, they had already started hiding and avoiding questions. Gamers.RS, on the other hand, handled organizational issues on the site and, on the contrary, accommodated players. But their hands were tied. Gamers.RS representatives already openly stated that they could not get through to Mr. B, and if someone managed to talk to him, he gave no specific answers, just laughed and assured that everything would be fine. The second day of the tournament ended with 2 bad news. First, Team Titan, who had already been roughed up by the passport situation, got into another scrape. Take a look at the appetizing food the hotel was feeding players. Not only do the dishes look, to put it mildly, unappealing, but it turned out that the ingredients weren't the freshest. 2 Titan players and a manager went straight to the hospital after dinner, where they were diagnosed with mild food poisoning. Secondly, all the production equipment was confiscated by the company that Mr. B, like many others, did not pay anything to. Those who were trying to keep the tournament afloat somehow were left without lights, video cameras, and other necessary equipment. At that point, Mr. B admitted that he had no money to pay out prizes and organized a meeting of team managers to resolve this issue. They agreed that Mr. B would issue everyone a document by which he is obligated to pay out prizes within 90 days. He did in fact do this, but the contract was not signed on behalf of Mr. B, but on behalf of his company, Gaming Resorts. This is an important detail that we will come back to later. When they came to the arena next day, the teams found that this time there were no spectators and also no equipment. That company had left only 10 computers. It looked like a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie.
In the huge empty arena where spectators had still been walking yesterday, today only the rigging lights remained, along with 10 lonely PCs assembled from office machines with Bitcoin mining GPUs.
There was nothing else to do. With the help of Gamers.RS, the Virtus Pro, Titan, Navi and Kingwing teams configured the PCs and began playing the final matches. In the end, Kingwing emerged as champions, and immediately after the tournament ended, the hype around it subsided a little. The reason was that the players were in a hurry to get out of there, and soon as possible, because the next day a major LAN from ESL was starting. Kingwing's lawyers, who by that time had rebranded as G2, began negotiating with Gaming Resorts about the prize money. After all, Mr. B had given the document promising to transfer the money within 90 days of the tournament's conclusion. But remember, we told you that Mr. B signed the contract on behalf of Gaming Resort? This point became decisive in the situation with Kingwing. Mr. B simply filed for bankruptcy of his company, and since it has no assets, there is nothing to confiscate. As a result, no one received a penny in prize money. That's what the most terrible tournament in Csgo history was like. Friends, if you like the format, don't forget to hit that like button like it's hot and subscribe to the channel. In return, we will be happy to entertain you with interesting content. We still have many different stories in store. Till next time, friends.